Commissioners, you're now live. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Andrew Fletcher. I'm the acting chair of the City of Asheville's Downtown Commission. I'd like to welcome you to the February 12th Downtown Commission meeting. The Downtown Commission is made up of 11 members appointed by various organizations, both the City of Asheville, Buncombe County, and the Asheville Downtown Association. And we have a geographic mandate of looking at issues that concern downtown and advising Asheville City Council on those issues. And one of our most important roles is design review, which we are not going to see today, but is often an important part of our work. We are all participating virtually today. So if you need to turn your cat filter on or off, please make sure and do that at this time. And we are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. And in addition, this meeting will be archived on YouTube to be reviewed in the future. We also have an option for the public to listen by phone. And for those of us out there, welcome. So I'm going to go through a roll call vote now, and we're going to go in alphabetical order of last name. So first, if you will just turn your mic on and say hello when I call your name. So Commissioner Dane Berger.
Present.
All right. Commissioner Franzi Charn.
Present. Here.
Present. And Acting Chair Andrew Fletcher, that's me, I'm here. Commissioner Kimberly Hunter.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Stephen Lee Johnson.
Here.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Brian Moffitt.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Robin Rains.
Here.
All right, Commissioner Guillermo Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Megan Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Ruth Summers.
Here.
And Councilwoman Sage Turner.
Here. Mr. Fletcher, I'm having a hard time hearing you a little bit. I've got my mic all the way up, but you're a little quieter than everyone if you have an adjustment. Thank you.
All right, sure. I can make a small adjustment. Here, is that any better? Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to first welcome our two new members, Megan Rogers, who has been to many of our meetings as the Executive Director of the Asheville Downtown Association, but she is filling in that spot now. So everyone, welcome Megan Rogers. And in addition, our other new member taking over Pam Winkler's seat is Guillermo Rodriguez. So welcome him too. He's also a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and a former member of Public Art and Cultural Commission, brings a lot of expertise to the table.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you for calling me Guillo. Please, everyone call me Guillo. Guillermo sounds so official. And I know about half of you, so nice to see y'all again, and I look forward to working with the rest of you. I am always Guillo. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Guillo. So with that, if everyone has reviewed the minutes, if we could get either any changes or a motion to accept the November minutes.
I have one small change. In the roll call, my last name is misspelled. Everywhere else it's correct, but just in that one place.
Okay. So can we get, if there are no other changes, can we get a motion as amended?
I'll go ahead and move to approve.
Okay,
Seconded.
Second.
Seconded.
Is that
Brian.
Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just matter of process, do we need a roll call vote for minutes? Or we can say just saying yes? Okay, cool. So we're going to roll call vote for the minutes. And so we're going to go back through this. Dane moves, so we're going to move to Commissioner Charon.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I did not understand you.
Approve.
Approve. Okay, cool. Chair Fletcher, approve. Commissioner Hunter.
Approve.
Commissioner Stephen Lee Johnson.
Approve.
And Commissioner Moffitt seconded. Commissioner Rains.
Approve.
All right. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Approve.
Commissioner Rogers,
Approve.
Commissioner Summers,
Approved.
and Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna have just a brief review of the agenda, and for everyone listening along, I am going to introduce each member of the each item of the agenda, and if when we are going to be speaking without being introduced, if you would please say hello so that people who are only listening can know who is speaking. Say hello and your name too, just as a reminder. So we're going to hear from Bernard Oliphant shortly, who is a member of the Vance Monument Task Force. We're going to hear from him. We are going to hear from Ben Woody, Development Service Director, about the noise ordinance revisions, timeline, and engagement updates. We're going to have priorities and recommendations for 2020 annual report, which we've been putting together this week with your input. We'll have a resolution from Robin Rains on advocating for housing first solutions. We'll have officer elections, and then a subcommittee reorganization, followed by updates and reports, and then public comment, informal discussion, and finally an adjournment. So if we run on time, we'll be wrapping up about 11 o'clock. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the from Bernard Oliphant and the Vance Monument Task Force report. So if we can now hear from you, Bernard. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Bernard Oliphant. I was on a team of actually 11 people from both the city and the county. We had a charter of processing and reviewing recommendations to leave it alone, to repurpose, or to remove the Vance Monument. We had more than 3,000 to 4,000 recommendations. So there was good community activity and community involvement. We submitted our final recommendations to the city and the county commissioners in the November timeframe. Our final recommendation was removal with one objection, and that's 1 out of 11. We came again last week for a final review. That recommendation stands with the modification that said, take a hard look at the entire area and make it a green area if there's a final removal. Right now, the city council is still reviewing costs for possible removal or maybe considerations for repurposing. But the recommendation is to make it an entire green area to include removing the access road from Biltmore down toward the fire station. That was the final recommendations that we had, make it an entire green area. Are there any questions? That's all. Thank you for letting me be here.
Bernard, thank you for being here this morning. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, and thank you very much for your work and the work of the task force. That was, I'm sure that was a challenge. I was actually an applicant for that myself. And when I was not appointed, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief because I knew the work that was going to go into that. And so thank you for your service over there. And I'm personally very pleased with the results of your work. And I hope that they move quickly into being reality.
Yes, thank you very much.
If there are any more questions for him or anything else we'd like to know while we're on this agenda item?
Andrew, this is Stephen Lee. I think that all of us probably have lots of personal thoughts about this. And I think that it's been really interesting to watch this entire process move forward. I know that a lot of us were a bit hesitant about removing something like this for various reasons. And the process quickly, for me, became very, very clear, the answer. I think that if you walk in the space now and just visualize what architecturally is going to begin to really stand out, what needs to stand out, the Jackson Building, the city hall, the county building. This thing just needs to be erased. And I can see the current monument from where I live, and I just am looking forward to not seeing it there anymore. But I really appreciate personally the work this committee did, because that was a tough committee to be on. Thank you.
I've got a quick question. Is that committee going to remain involved as the process moves forward and they look at specific recommendations and specific designs for whatever happens there?
As a committee member, we are available, but the commission has pretty much resolved our challenges. But many members are still available to assist with whatever the final results are and moving forward.
Thank you.
Perhaps the Haywood Page Task Force and its evolution into the implementation committee could be a model for how the original board could serve to continue that work in the future. Some of us on Haywood Page Task Force were also on the implementation committee and work forward. So if I might suggest that is that model seemed to work well. So I might if the task force folks are there and willing, and some of them wish to continue, I hope that there's room for them to serve in the future. Commissioner Rodriguez.
I just had a question because I'm a huge public art advocate, and I was wondering if any consideration was done to recreate a new piece of art, or at least reserve that space in its new configuration for something really substantive that becomes an icon for Asheville downtown. And I know how budgets work, but at least to be able to just designate an area where new artwork can go in that can really capture the spirit and the vitality of downtown Asheville.
The answer was a resounding yes. It was a major challenge. It was very painful discussions throughout the 12 weeks that we were there processing the data. But after thousands of recommendations and input from the citizens, the recommendation was to remove it.
Commissioner Johnson.
Chair Fletcher, I think that Commissioner Moffitt and Rodriguez bring up a really good point, and this may be the position and group to make the strong recommendation to the council's aware of it. But there needs to be a committee that's developed to decide what most appropriately moves forward.
And there needs to be continuity. I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Moffitt. There needs to be continuity between the groups. I don't think you want a whole separate new group coming in and suddenly trying to relitigate. I don't know the right word. Again.
Would that be a council decision, Sage, or just to punt it back to the DT and come further tweak the future possibilities?
I'll tell you what I do know. Bernard is right. There is some effort behind the scenes, like figuring out the cost of things. And there is certainly a conversation similar to the one y'all are having right now, which is what goes there next? What do we do with the immediate void? There's some structure under there. There's a lot more going on than just what you see above ground. So there's a safety thing, there has to be a plan. I don't know that we have picked a direction on who would help with the revision or whatnot, whatever you want to call it. But I agree with the sentiment that those involved thus far should be continually involved in the process. But we haven't really decided as a council yet. Soon, I believe it's coming soon.
Yep, Commissioner Moffitt.
And I just vaguely remember discussing this when I was rotating off of HRC, but did SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, what was their determination on whether or not it could be removed according to that North Carolina monument law? Can't remember which one it is.
I know of several emails or correspondence that are, citing laws and things that I don't fully understand and that the city attorney's office is engaged in. I would suspect that as we wrap all of this up, we'll have information on all of those subjects and deliver it. I don't want to say something that could potentially be incorrect. I just don't know at this time. Good question, though.
I believe other cities have found that and with their legal departments, but obviously there's some interpretation there. I've seen that it can be deemed a public safety issue, which I think we've certainly seen that.
That's exactly, yeah.
And I mean, as someone who was in downtown in early June, I'd say that there was a public safety issue. So
we are seeing across
maybe there's
other cities, that's the direction that they're using in the language, that it's a public safety issue. And I would agree that it is.
So there is an opportunity here I think have a bigger discussion about urban design of downtown and Pack Square. And I personally hope to see that we don't look at just the little piece of land that the monument is on, but we, just like the task force was saying, like, closing that road and taking a bigger approach about all the traffic, all the pedestrian needs, and all the opportunities that we have, especially to learn from the lessons of public space management that we've gotten during the pandemic, which is something that in our downtown priorities comes up again and again. So I'm hoping that we get to integrate all that stuff with this transformational moment where we're going to be moving past these types of monuments in our city center. So yeah, I can't wait to see what comes next. And Sage, it sounds like you can relay to council that Downtown Commission is a resource for that, for whatever process comes next. And I think we'd be happy to be called upon.
Sure. And as we proceed and learn, about me in this role, if there's things that this commission would like updates on and I can get a little notice, I'm happy to address them at our future meetings.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, hearing no other questions for Bernard or discussion, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item with thanks to Mr. Oliphant for his service and for his time this morning, coming and talking to us. Really appreciate you. All right. Next up, we have Ben Woody, Development Services Director, who's going to tell us about the noise ordinance timeline and engagement updates. So, Ben, what do you have for us?
You're still muted, Ben.
Let's try. Can you hear me now or no?
There we go.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. For some reason, I have to plug my headphones in multiple times. I'll try again. So yeah, first of all, I do not have a slide deck this morning, so I'm just going to talk through the noise ordinance. Again, good morning. Happy Friday. My name is Ben Woody, the Director of Development Services. Want to thank Chair Fletcher, Councilwoman Turner, and the rest of the commission for giving me a few minutes to provide an update. And I'll move through this pretty quickly and then answer any questions you have. I'll also put a link in the chat box. That's the noise ordinance project page. And of course, anybody listening can go to the city website and just search noise ordinance and also see that project page. So we started this process in 2019. I've been to the commission several times to give updates throughout. Worked on it for about a year. In March of 2020, we were within days of releasing the draft ordinance, and then the pandemic kind of happened all of a sudden and everything closed. So that was delayed. So we didn't really do much with this ordinance for most of 2020. But then in November of 2020, we did release the draft ordinance. And again, that draft ordinance was essentially ready back in March, but we released that in November of 2020. We had a public comment period on that draft ordinance. It was open through mid-December. We got a ton of comments, almost 900. So I would say, all things being relative, that's a pretty good number of comments for people that are reading an ordinance. And basically where we're at now is probably the big issue that came out of those comments, and I think this does relate to downtown, is a lot of concern over how the standards, how the ordinance was dealing with, and I'll say basically amplified sound. So what we found is members of Asheville's music community, music professionals, venue owners were really concerned about the permitting, the standards that would be in place for amplified sound. Of course, you also have residents and groups of residents that are also concerned about the impact that amplified sound can have on their quality of life. So where we're at now is, and I'll review. So what came out of that was a handful of things, and these are kind of the next steps. The first thing is, and I'm going to acknowledge this, the timing of this ordinance is not good. We acknowledge that. I mean, in an industry and a city that really is struggling in a lot of ways, rolling out a new set of regulations on top of that is not good. And the staff is recommending, and the Public Safety Council Committee, I believe, committed to continue to work on this noise ordinance, but also acknowledging that any effective date or any implementation of a new set of standards needs to come after the pandemic. So, I don't know when that effective date will be. We'd like to get this ordinance and program done, but I will acknowledge, I have no doubt that council will not implement this until we are back into a better place as a community. That's not to say we won't continue to build a noise program and try to address quality of life issues, because one thing that's interesting that I'll just leave you with is we have about 8 years of noise call data. So we kind of know how many calls we get a year in the city and where they are. And it's close to about 2,000 calls a year around either loud music or loud noise. Interestingly, in 2020, there was no dip in those numbers. So we got a consistent number of noise complaints, pandemic or not. So there's still quality of life noise issues that exist in the community that need to be addressed. But the timing of new standards, we have to be, sensitive to the conditions that exist. So what we have proposed is, number one, is to delay the effective date of this ordinance. We do want to continue to work on it. And I would ask the commission to look at this, not just an ordinance as one piece of a program. So we're looking at this, the staff is, as a program. We want to have an ordinance that's a tool to set expectations. We want to, promote a good neighbor policy. We want to promote equitable enforcement strategies. So we're kind of looking at this as a collection of tools to help us, deal with chronic noise issues in the city. The other piece that we've done since that public, and what we're working on actively now, is we have a group of residents from the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods, and we have a representation of Asheville music professionals and some venue owners trying to work through some of the areas of, some of the noise ordinance areas related to amplified sound, trying to build consensus amongst these venue owners and musicians and the residents. So when we do bring this to council, hopefully we're much closer together on the ordinance on that aspect of it. And we're actively meeting, having good meetings. I think getting good information between those groups has really been powerful. And we're getting, I think, to a good compromise on that piece of the ordinance. The other thing that we're working on, of course, our input processes are open to everybody. We put flyers everywhere, make it available, but not everybody participates. So we still believe that when we kind of look at the data on the ordinance input, we don't think we got a lot of feedback from people that live in public housing communities or multifamily communities. And that's important because the majority of noise complaints actually come from multifamily developments. So we know that's where the bulk of the heavy lift is, so to speak. So we're continuing to try to reach out to those multifamily communities to try to make sure that we can ask those residents and those owners, did we get this right? So that continues to be a challenge, but that's another piece that we are actively working on. And then the last thing I'll share with this commission, which is really important too, this is also part of the Reimagining Public Safety Initiative. So one of the things that my department's been asked to do is to integrate, we've integrated animal services, you may or may not know that, but we're also integrating noise ordinance enforcement and trying to take more of that off of the police department. So what that looks like is, how do we as a department, number one is how do we reduce noise complaints and improve the quality of life? But the second metric is how do we reduce the number of noise complaints that the Asheville Police Department has to respond to? So there's kind of two metrics that we're working on. And we think the best way to do that is to build a program that deals with chronic noise violators. So ultimately, we know where most of the complaints come from. And the thought is to try to be more proactive and try to, again, ultimately reduce the overall number of noise complaints. And on top of that, reduce the number of complaints that APD responds to. So real life examples for downtown, things that you could expect to see in the future. is additional staffing and resources in my department, and you'll see those non-APD employees, for example, can be in downtown, and if there are buskers that are amplifying a whole band, you know, obviously clearly amplifying beyond a reasonable normal, we'll have somebody that can address that proactively and try to educate first, and then if we have to have accountability, we will. Another example in downtown is if you've got businesses that are leaving speakers on overnight, or if you've got businesses that have live music and leaving the windows open, you know, rather than have APD respond each night when that's an issue, the logic or the program is you've got non-APD staff that can reach out to those situations and try to address those kind of from a systemic, you know, try to deal with the source of the problem, not just react to the problem. And those pieces in terms of staffing that and approaching, you know, noise differently, those will continue to move forward. We're going to try to begin to do that this summer. So even if the ordinance, if the actual ordinance itself is delayed, the new standards, there's still part of this that we can do and try to, again, improve, you know, the city's response to noise complaints and ultimately quality of life. So what I would expect generally is we'd like to get an ordinance to council in March or April. We're still trying to do that and tie these loose ends up. And then, of course, begin to see the DSD department staff some of these functions as part of reimagining public safety, and ultimately, hopefully, have a new ordinance in place sometime later in 2021 when we're through this pandemic, which it could be later than that. So with that, I'll stop talking and answer any questions the commission may have. Thank you.
Cool. Commissioner Hunter, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you,
Gio.
Director Woody. I wanted to ask if you all had considered actually making the downtown a higher threshold for noise, because oftentimes in city centers, just by the nature of being a city center and all of the business and the activities, there's just a higher noise level in general. And it's, you know, whether it's a multifamily unit or not. So I was wondering, in counterbalancing some of the things that you mentioned, which I think is really great, if you would also consider kind of having an overarching kind of lead that says, you know, city center parameters suggest that there's a higher noise level of blah, right? And then the threshold also changes because you're within the city center.
That's a really good question, and we did propose that in the draft, and I think we'll continue to propose that. So there are higher decibel levels allowed in downtown. There's differences in the times that those decibels can be created. In even areas like trash service, for example, you know, we have to allow trash service to happen earlier in downtown because of the nature of it. So yeah, we have distinguished the CBD from other areas of the city, but that's a good intuitive question.
Speaking for the downtown residents, I would be totally opposed to increasing the sound limits for downtown beyond what they are right now. I mean, we already deal with all kinds of sound issues. You mentioned, you know, the trash trucks that come around at 6 o'clock in the morning, the fire engines that come by our house 24 hours a day, basically, and all the other street noises from buskers and bars and everything else. I think that you would have a major pushback if you wanted to increase the noise limits specifically for downtown.
Gio, I saw your hand was up too. And then Franzi and Megan.
Very quick question. Is there a place that we can look at the draft ordinance, or can you you or Dana send a link to that?
It's in the chat.
Yep, I put a link in the chat. You can find some FAQs, which are really good, and actually it'll answer your question about downtown versus other areas, as well as the draft ordinance.
Thank you.
And I will note one thing, just as we continue to take questions, there are no decibel levels in Asheville right now. There are none. So all the decibel levels that we're establishing are new for every part of the city.
Franzi, I think I had you next.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Ben, for your comprehensive report and all of your diligence. I know this is a very hard ordinance to roll out, especially since we have had not much of one up to now. But because of the specific issues right now with, you know, the coronavirus, I know a lot of venues have really built out their outdoor spaces, whether it's restaurants or music venues, and are relying on those outdoor spaces to, you know, carry them through especially while we're still dealing with the pandemic. And so inevitably the outdoor space is going to be, especially in the downtown area, louder. We've also had new businesses like Rabbit open with a certain business plan in order to operate primarily with, events and music in a very residential area of downtown. And I know you know all this, but I'm very, very concerned about our local businesses coming out of the pandemic, already having, major financial burdens on them, even, possibly not surviving, and then having this new ordinance coming along with some, fiscal penalties, and then even penalties of, a probationary period of like 30 days where, music venues book events long before 30 days and already have to pay a huge sums to get those events here. And if they have to close for 30 days because of a, offense of, the noise ordinance, then that could easily put them out of business. I know you know all this, but I know that they're also asking for a period of 1 to 2 years of trial period where, you work together to make sure that this ordinance is what we need and is at the levels that we need it, or if it's too punitive, or and then the other thought I had, or the other question I had was, could there be something, instead of the fine, is there a way to put money towards developing these outdoor spaces so that they are quieter, and helping the venues build out spaces that have buffer zones and things like that? I know it's very, very concerning, and our venues are terrified that they won't be able to operate.
So yeah, really, really good comments. I'll take a second to address those. Number one, the staff, we 100% support a delayed effective date. So yes, everybody's going to be outdoors because they have to. And we need to give businesses an opportunity to get their financial books in order, so to speak. So I think the city, we're going to recommend being flexible with any kind of start of any new program. I don't want to put pressure on Sage, Councilwoman Turner, but obviously at the end of the day, council will decide what that date is or looks like. But I'll say, like, most of the residents are also understanding of that. So I think there's broad consensus that we need to slow this down. And the other piece is, in terms of the concerns over enforcement, the punitive nature of the ordinance. You're right about that. That was probably, that needs to read differently and be different as part of the program. We have the group we're meeting with. We have every major venue owner in Asheville in the meeting at the table. So Rabbit, I won't name everybody. I'll name the ones you name, but all the other ones that you would name are in these meetings with these residents, and we are all committed to saying that yes, if you have a doorman or doorwoman that leaves a door open accidentally one night, we are not coming to shut down your venue. And yes, you need an opportunity to balance your operations, to take measurements, to make adjustments to orientation of speakers, things like that. And so we're going to add that into the ordinance, and there seems to be broad support about doing that. And we're looking at Austin, Texas. If you want to do that, Austin has a really good setup in terms of they have permitting, but they have ways, they have opportunities to address violations before you actually lose your permits. We're trying to build that into the ordinance. There are objective steps towards, so the residents can take heart in. If we get a loud show, there are objective processes that the venue owner can take to correct that. Now, of course, if they don't, there's consequences. But yes, that's everything you said, Francie, is spot on. And those are things we were actively talking about with the owners of these venues and music professionals in Asheville. So I just want to assure you those conversations are happening.
Well, I think we got Megan, and then I see Brian's hand.
Thank you. This is Megan Rogers. Actually, I was going to ask the same question that Commissioner Sharon just asked. And that's been one of the big concerns that I've heard, is that the punitive nature right out of the gate was frightening for the venues, and a 30-day revocation of a permit, even in non-pandemic times, would be detrimental to these businesses. So I'm really happy to hear that there's a lot of collaborative conversations happening, and just wanted to echo that statement and appreciate the work y'all are doing on this. Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you. Quickly, one of the primary things, the noise ordinance must use equity as a lens through which to evaluate policy, both criteria and enforcement. And I understand that moving enforcement from APD to development services is part of that, but it's the criteria part. So if multifamily is one of the primary areas where you receive calls, and I know you said you're kind of having a little difficulty getting engagement with them on the criteria side. What else are you doing to ensure that you are using equity as a lens for the criteria itself? I see the enforcement side of it, and thank you for that. I'm curious about the criteria and how we're getting those folks involved.
So what we're able to, and I'm just going to walk through this. That's a good question, Commissioner Moffitt. So it starts by being data driven. So the first thing, everybody assumes that noise complaints primarily come from amplified music or venues, but that's not true. 80% of noise complaints come from residential areas, and they tend to come from multifamily communities. And if you take it another layer, they tend to come from multifamily communities that don't have air conditioning, because most noise complaints are in the summer and it's in the evenings. And then there's a correlation between that with census tracts that have higher than normal proportions of minority populations. So you kind of build the data upon itself when you realize that the work that needs to be done are in these multifamily communities. And then the question is fundamentally is when you address that, one is you could send a police officer with a noise meter and you could try to sort that out and issue citations to individuals. We don't think that is equitable in any sense of the word. So our approach to that, Brian, is, or Commissioner Moffitt, is we want to look at the data, identify areas where there's concentrated complaints. So if I can see that in a community in the month of June, we've gotten, and this is real data, 60 noise complaints in 1 month, what we're actually going to do is reach out to the owner of that apartment complex, make them aware of the problems, and actually try to work with the owner to have them address those problems. Most multifamily communities have quiet hours, they have policies in place. And the question is, how can we, number one, make them aware of these issues? And then number two is what resources, what tools, what education, what can the city do to help facilitate those conversations and bring awareness? Because a lot of times noise complaints, people just don't realize. You get off work, you're in the service industry, you turn your music up, it's 11:30 at night. You may just not always think that there's a family with school-age children below you or above you. And so a lot of times it's just an awareness that needs to exist. So I guess the answer is the first is to evaluate data, be data-driven. Where we see chronic or systemic noise issues, try to address that proactively, not through a punitive approach, but from a reaching out, educating, trying to look for ways to have that problem addressed. Now, if the problem isn't addressed, if it continues, the one tool we have is, obviously we could cite an individual, but we also have the ability to cite the property owner as well. So accountability can exist in different areas under this new ordinance. And that's the thought process. I don't know if that will work because we haven't tried it before, but I think that's where our equity analysis led us to.
This is Kimmy
Kimmy, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry. So Director Woody, I appreciate what you just said. Everything in me is like getting very anxious because all the data actually oftentimes is privilege driven. And I personally lived in apartments for many years, and I find that people who are culturally insensitive to other people's cultural celebrations, to the fact that maybe a specific culture, when they have friends or family come in, they're very loud and boisterous, becomes a noise complaint rather than understanding the cultural references. It also infringes upon tenant rights when there's another, it's just so many things, like getting the owner involved. There's, I don't know, I'm just having a lot of anxiety rise up over the equity piece, and also over, especially with cultural sensitivities, and over families or individuals who live in apartments having their rights be diminished because maybe someone else is insensitive that is complaining. So I don't know. I would rethink all of what you just said, with all due respect.
Yeah, I think that's why I hear you. And I think, right now the model is to send a police officer to address it. We don't think that's the right model. I guess I would say, I think education. I think everything you just said is part of education and part of trying to build community-based solutions. So again, I think everything you just said is important and is true, and I think that's part of trying to make owners and residents aware of that and give them the tools to try to address that. And you know, again, we've never done this before. We can't find another city that's done this either. So we are open to suggestions to try to do this the right way.
Well, I volunteer my time to help with that equity piece if you need it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support.
Yeah.
This is Dane Berriger again. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Woody, for your work on this. I think it's been badly needed for many years. The fact that we really don't have a noise ordinance now, and you guys have done a great job. And I know there's going to be issues, you know, when it comes to implementation, but we're just going to have to work through that because we do need this ordinance.
So, Ben, is there a relationship between population density and noise complaints?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. There's a correlation in that. And again, I guess I just say that, like, that's, and I think that's where the city needs to focus. If the goal is to reduce the impacts of noise, then we need to focus where those impacts are greatest, which is higher density areas.
So I've worked with you from the Buskers Collective side, and I can say that, you know, from the Buskers Collective side, you know, we talked about it a lot. We had our own problems with some buskers being too loud, and I think that kind of the consensus that came out of those conversations was that if the city helps us to lower the ceiling, there might be more room for everyone on the floor, and that and because, you know, if it takes, you know, a resident a few minutes to be annoyed by a busker that's very loud, well, there's a busker that's trying to set up around the corner that's annoyed immediately and is probably dissuaded immediately. And so there's actually a lot of common ground in that. And I thought that the approach toward the busking rules was A, worth a try, as long as B, we could go back and work on it again if it didn't work, if it had unintended consequences and that type of thing. I'm really happy to see about that the music venues are being heard on this. So just a little bit of data here. The music industry, which is part of art, design, entertainment, sports, and media occupations, is 3% of total employment in Buncombe County. Construction and extraction occupations is 4.5%. So as an industry, we're pretty big compared to construction. And if you look at the numbers that music is putting out as far as noise complaints, then we are doing a lot better job than the construction industry is. But I also think that there hasn't been as much of a focus on the meat of the problem in construction as there has been on, you know, a little bit of the trimmings of the problem, which is around music noise. And so I would say that if we want to look at the size of these industries, and we want to look at the size of the phone calls, the noise complaints that we're getting, you know, just trying to make sure that those things fit and those gloves actually fit and work, and reduce the number of phone calls and create a system that is accountable and predictable for the folks that are making the majority of those noises, which are, as we know, are construction related, if I'm correct, right?
Never can find the mute button when I want to. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, Chair Fletcher. I think that's a good summation you just gave, and I agree with it.
Well, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the commission for Ben before we move on? Great. So the only other thing is like, I would just like to know the exact end date of the pandemic. If you know that, Ben, if you could please share that with us so that we could know when the noise ordinance is going to be ready.
I don't know. It may be longer than we want it to be. That's all I think. So
it just earlier it sounded like you were just about to tell us when that end date was, when that noise ordinance was going to come in. But thank you very much for being here. And appreciate your updates. I'm sure we're going to hear from you again. I'll be paying, as a musician myself, will be paying close attention to this. But thanks for your work and your responsiveness. I know you haven't made everybody happy, but I know that everyone's been heard. So
yeah,
you know,
thank you.
So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it, and thank you for your comments. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. All right. Moving on in the agenda, we are now going to talk about priorities and recommendations for our 2020 annual report. So Dana and I sent out a survey earlier this month, and basically we kind of just asked you for like where did we, what's working, what can we carry on from our past priorities, and is there anything new that you want to add? And got most all of your responses, and Dana and I made an attempt at trying to merge them all and try to make sense of them in a way that honored your input, but also we didn't have to repeat things or things like that. It's not an easy task. We gave it a try, and if you've reviewed that in your documents now, we can discuss, and this is going to culminate in a motion and a vote to pass on to council or not. So first off, Dana, do you have anything you want to introduce about this, or did I just kind of wrap it up, or should I open it up to the commission?
I'll just add that all boards and commissions are being asked to submit their annual reports by March 8th. Typically, we would have done that back in January. And we're missing the council retreat, but these will go to council in time for the budget process. So this is one time to formally provide recommendations to council, and to also just inform council of your priorities for the year. And just to state again, so this will be, what's worked on today will be incorporated into the 2020 annual report. I'll work with the chair after this meeting to get that all finalized. You all can, of course, make recommendations to council at any time, but it's important that we wrap this up to incorporate into the report.
Thank you, Dana. I see Sage has her hand up.
I was just going to let y'all know our retreat was scheduled for Monday and Tuesday, and it has been postponed. So you do have more time.
Oh, thank you.
And just administratively, if you all want me to share the screen, or I'm here to support in whatever way is most helpful.
Yeah, that's right. Dana, would you mind sharing the screen of that just to get it up so we can all have a look at it? And if you got questions or comments, I see Kimmy has her hand up, but questions, comments, feedback, input. So let's all steer us toward a motion we can support. Kimmy?
Thanks, Chair Fletcher. So my question is, when I filled out this survey, I was concerned that for myself, I know, and maybe a few other commissioners, I wasn't in that, I think it was 2018, 2019 session. So I appreciate the carry forward, but we've had lots of changes, not just in the commission seats, but also in the council seats. And so to put a priority forward where I'm not sure it represents what's happening currently with the state of our community, COVID, our businesses, the state of Black Asheville residents, things like that. It just feels really out of touch to me. And there wasn't just enough room in the survey for me to articulate that in writing without coming off as being crass or rough, because that's not my intention. So where's our space for that conversation? It just feels like we're moving right to, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I'm like, there's so much that needs to be kind of considered. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would say that with these priorities and recommendations, we're sort of aiming at a moving target that's far in the future. And so, I mean, really I think that with a lot of what we'd be recommending and asking on needs to sort of land at a future date where hopefully we're past the pandemic and we're capturing the lessons and learning from that. It's difficult to deal with the shifting ground of, I think, of the immediate problems presented to our community from the Downtown Commission. I mean, I think there were certainly some efforts that we can make, But me personally, for the priorities and recommendations, I'm trying to take a very long lens, and of course that incorporates what's close to us, but in a way that I'm anticipating learning from what's current and then implementing it in the future. So I agree with you, but I think that if we're looking at where our policies and recommendations are going to land, that we need to be careful about how specific and how broad and exactly where our mandate allows us to work and advise.
So is that something we can work through our own retreat? Because I think ours got pushed back last year. It just feels like we're running into this without having a bigger discussion.
Kimmy, you're absolutely right. I did feel that we would have greatly benefited from having a retreat to do this. So we are definitely trying to sail this ship with without the benefit of a retreat. It's difficult to do this remotely. We made a try, and I'm definitely willing to adapt in response to the commission. Dana, did you have something to add?
I just appreciate that was brought up. The fact that we haven't had a retreat, I mean, it's a really important point, and we have had different circumstances over the past year. We could work towards having a retreat. The city has been limited on the amount of and frequency of meetings, of public meetings to hold. It's been a tough year, and I wish that the commission could have, had a retreat sooner, but I think it's definitely something we can talk about. It doesn't change the deadline for this particular annual report, but I think it is an important observation and reality.
So, I see hands raised. Gio, Dane, and Sage.
Thanks. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on Commissioner Hunter's comments. I was really glad that, even though there may be more needed to this, but I think, for example, the last 3 bullet points under Downtown Commission priorities really do talk about issues with the pandemic, the things that we've learned dealing with the pandemic, and how to, as urban planners, update these maybe standards, priorities, look at public spaces. So I think that's a good beginning, because that's something that staff can be looking at while we gather more information. So thank you, staff, for putting that in. Those people who I see sort of one of my points there. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Who did I have next? Dane? And say.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dane Berger. I was just going to say, I agree that we need a retreat. I believe this document is actually from 2018. So it's been a long time and things have changed. So I would suggest that maybe we want to get that on the schedule for October. Since Ben won't tell us when the pandemic is going to end, we'll just have to hope for October. But it seems like by October, at least we get it on the schedule, and it definitely needs to be done however we do it.
Sage?
I was just going to share that we're not talking about this as a council this month. So if y'all need more time, this might be the first time we've had really a downtown focused advocate on council in a while. I would love for y'all to feel really good about your priorities, and for me to send an email to all of council saying these are their priority. I would love for it to be really wrapped up and everybody feel really good about it. So I would encourage y'all to take the time. And retreats can be virtual. Y'all have great discussions. You could do a virtual retreat. Just a little encouragement.
So we did our last retreat was scheduled, I believe, mid-March 2020, or was it late March 2020? We did have a remote retreat scheduled. That was one of the first things that were canceled last year, unfortunately. I definitely see the benefit of getting all the heads in the room and working on this stuff. It makes it go quickly. It makes it. I feel there's a lot more understanding and sympathy for each other's perspectives and viewpoints when we're like that. I think one of our issues is timing here. is in that our next meeting after this is scheduled for April. And if we want to have our priorities have chances of having legs, we should get them to council while they're working on budget retreat and that type of stuff. If we miss that opportunity, we'll not be getting better things done. We'll be getting just less done. So I would really like to see us get something through today. And even if it is a placeholder, and we can then, if Commissioner Hunter, if your concerns are mainly that we didn't get everything, but that what we do have is usable, then what I might suggest is that we get this through today, and then try to have an additional round. Is that acceptable to you, Commissioner Hunter?
No, because I don't see this as being usable. I see it as being out of touch. And that's just my personal take. So with all due respect, I'm not going to say that any of this is acceptable today. And I would even be willing to do a virtual retreat next month in March, just so we can move things along. I'm willing to put the work in.
Dana?
We need to submit an annual report by March 8th. I can look into scheduling an earlier meeting. I want everyone to know, and I know there's been a lot of emails, but the protocol at this point is for boards and commissions to meet every other month, unless there's critical business, and boards and commissions can meet every month if there's critical business. Again, I can look into holding a special meeting between now and March 8th. I can't promise that at this moment in time, but I want you all to understand that that's where we're at, and that we do need to submit an annual report by March 8th.
Dana, do we know enough about the queue that there might be a design review component to March's meeting? I mean, that deadline is 5 days ahead of your meeting. Maybe you could just move that meeting and have it as the retreat instead. And I'm so trying not to be the chair anymore. I'm sorry. I'll be on mute. Sorry.
So that's a great, Sage. That's a great question. So as far as I understand, we're not slated to have a design review ready until April, and someone from our design review committee can confirm or deny that that's reasonably accurate.
We don't have anything that we've been made aware of that's coming up for next month.
Okay. So we probably will not have critical business that will allow us to convene a meeting in March. Very interesting.
Is this not considered critical business? Sorry.
That's going to be I don't think that gets to be a chair determination. I think it's a staff determination.
I think it absolutely could be. We're also meeting now. So I'm happy to look into scheduling another meeting if that's what you all feel like is important. And I can try to look into that now if that's helpful.
This is Ruth Summers. Andrew, this is Ruth Summers. I feel that's important for us to meet, possibly if Dana can schedule a meeting date for us in either late February or early March, so that we can go over this annual report and update it with more pertinent information. I agree with everyone else and I do believe that this is critical business.
All right. So that is what I'm hearing from those whom I'm hearing from. So if we all want to get together and finish hammering this out, then we can table this and call another meeting early March.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion and ask staff to schedule a meeting, and preferably late February.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
So I hear a second from Commissioner Barringer.
Yes.
Any discussion?
Only discussion for me is if it were late February, if it could be the last Friday, that whole week I'm hemmed up, but otherwise I'm comfortable with that.
I heard from some staff, and it looks like the dates of February 26th or March 5th might work, if anyone wants to comment on those dates now.
February 26th is good with me.
26 works for me.
Me too.
26th in the morning works for me.
I
This
was
is
gonna
Robin.
say the afternoon for me. I'll be in the car, that's why, but I'll make it work, whatever.
I can follow up
Works.
with everyone by email, but maybe we'll pencil it.
I can join. Yay.
I'm good with that date as well.
Me, I'm good.
Me
That's
too.
an impressive amount of calendar alignment. I was just about to say, let's not try to like schedule right now. That could take forever, but that's pretty impressive. Okay, so we've got a motion in a second. We've had discussion, so I'm going to call the roll on it. Please remind me, we had Dane, you seconded,
Yes.
and Brian, you moved.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Commissioner Charon.
Aye.
All right. Chair Fletcher, aye. Commissioner Hunter.
I
All right. Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Rains.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers.
Aye.
Commissioner Summers.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. See you guys in a little over a week. No, the 26th. Yeah, that's like 2 weeks. Okay, very good. I look forward to working with you guys on that some more. I really would feel like we'd have, if we had the chance to do even an informal retreat working on this stuff, that it is gonna benefit us. We do have new challenges from the pandemic, and I think how quickly we can capture and pivot with those challenges is going to be helped by having a retreat. So I'm glad that y'all are willing. All right. So next up, we have a housing first resolution, and if I can just introduce like kind of where this came from. Commissioner Rains in our last meeting in November spoke about sort of the state of homelessness in downtown and where we were at with that, and what policies and programs could be ramped up during the pandemic to help out with the special needs of the pandemic. And that sort of turned into Commissioner Rains and Brian Husky from the city working together on a resolution that I'm in full support of, which is a housing first priority. To me, this is all about solutions rather than band-aids. It's about long-term care rather than and breaking cycles of houselessness. And in my opinion, it's also makes good sense fiscally because you don't have to spend the same money on the same service over and over and over again for people that are stuck in cycles of poverty. So I'm going to turn this over to Robin to speak a little bit more about it. And I understand we're going to have to read the whole thing out loud before we take a vote on it.
Hi, everybody. This is Robin. Andrew, thank you for your intro. There's not a whole lot to add other than Asheville obviously has a problem with homelessness. And in discussion with Brian Husky, one of the major problems we have in Asheville is many of the shelters that are available to the homeless have barriers to entry. And the main tenet of Housing First is that there is a low barrier entry because the feeling is that when someone is housed, they they need to be housed first in order to move on and get they're better able to move forward when they're housed first. And that is the recommendation that Brian feels works, and that's a recommendation that I feel works. So the resolution is basically asking that the city, let me look at it again, that the city of Asheville starts to focus monies on shelters that would provide low to no barrier entries and use the housing first model. So does anybody have any questions? Do you want me to read the resolution?
I'm a newcomer. I'd like to ask a little question. This is not downtown specific as I was reading it. It is just more a general, let's look at the unhoused situation and see how we can deal with that. Is that correct?
Yes, it would not be downtown specific, although downtown is hugely impacted.
Yeah, yes, it is. And has any other commission looked at this yet? Because I know P&Z has not looked at this.
No, I worked with Brian, and this is the only commission that I'm on.
Okay.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
Andrew, I think you're muted.
Commissioner Rains, thank you for your compassion and commitment. I'm fully excited about this resolution. I think I also come with a heavy heart because so many community members I talk to who have ancestors who've had property taken by eminent domain, those properties are now being considered at $1 rate to build for homeless. And so there's a confliction that I have that's not about taking care of homelessness. I am not conflicted about that for sure. But there's this ache and this really rich pain with taking resources that, a Black family may have only received $12,000 to be removed out of their house, and their family and ancestors have never had home ownership again. So I don't know how to resolve this. Do you have any thoughts? Has your team thought about this strange juxtaposition of taking care of homelessness through this lens, but at the expense of Black families who've lost property? I don't even know if the correlation has come together for anybody, but it has for me. I've had lots of people talk to me about it. So I do feel like I represent a strong population of the community, and I just want to get some clarity. I don't have answers. I don't know if you do either, but I thought I'd bring it up.
I don't. This is not something Brian and I discussed. We were more as just discussing that the city funding, instead of the funding going towards barrier shelters, that it would start to go towards low barrier shelters to help people with addiction issues, mental instability, other disabilities be able to be housed without having to meet certain requirements. And in Asheville, Brian did make the statement that minority populations are more affected by homelessness. So in my mind, I was thinking that this might help the Black community, especially the homeless Black community. I don't know anything about the eminent domain purchases and money going, so I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry.
Councilwoman Turner.
I wasn't going to speak to this direct part of the conversation, so if there's needs to be additional before I comment, please go ahead.
Anyone else from the commission? I would just say that, there's oftentimes you can have two good policies that are in seeming conflict, and that doesn't mean that either of those policies should not be implemented. It just means that someone has to have the wisdom someplace to sort out those conflicts. And there's an opportunity. I'm sure there'll be opportunities to advise on those particular issues. But I think that two things can be true at the same time. But on the same piece of land, obviously you have to make a someone has to make a choice based on values and what their goals are. I'm very comfortable you pushing forward this resolution and asking council to have a real lens about where exactly this is happening and whether there's other opportunities.
The resolution just says that housing first is the most effective strategy to end homelessness, recommends that the city's leadership prioritize available funding or other resources. It doesn't specify anything else other than just that the goal is housing first, instead of just continually applying Band-Aids.
Yeah, Commissioner Hunter.
I hear that. I do want to acknowledge, though, that some of what is going on in specifically the African American community and those who are allies to African Americans are grieving and outraged right now, even though it doesn't say this in the resolution, that what was taken from urban renewal from Black families who had ownership is not been given back, and now the resources of those are given to homeless. And so there's this strong just like, why isn't this resolved and this resolved also? So I recognize it doesn't say that, but the process for how this will roll out ultimately lives somewhere within this document. And I think for me, representing so many community members as everyone else does here, I have to speak to that because it's been spoken to me.
Councilwoman Turner.
Just a couple things, a little background. This is a great discussion. So, as you know, I was also really involved in affordable housing. So the city already has a priority for the housing first model. We do prioritize that among many things. And Brian Husky and his work is incredible. And I have no problem with this resolution. I think, I'm happy to share it with council, and they will nod and say, yes, aren't we glad we do that? As for the funding, is it a priority? I didn't see it as a risk against other funding. I absolutely hear you, Ms. Hunter, about your point. And I wanted to just share some good information that y'all might not be aware of, that and this came up in the last council meeting, there's some great presentations. The encampment issue that happened under Lexington Avenue has been resolved community-wide and statewide now. Those things will not continue to happen in the pandemic. And there are additional monies that have been coming into the county and the city from the CARES Act, and big layers that that the city has allocated to groups and organizations that exist in our community that are working on these issues and have funded them in big ways, whether it's rental assistance, prevention, outreach, on the street needs. I mean, there's a lot going on that we are working on. So I see this as a resolution in support coming from its downtown contingency, this commission. I don't see it as a conflict necessarily with other things. I will say, if I step back and look, I'm getting lots of emails and recommendations right now as we preempt the budget cycle, and lots of organizations and crews like y'all are saying, these are the things we care about. This is what we're putting forward. So I think this is one that's going to come to us in the stack. And I think it's fine to move forward as is. And if there are other priorities we want to talk about as a commission, send those too. I appreciate what y'all have done, Robin. I think it needs to be said. And right now there's a lot of focus on this issue, and I don't see any harm in it moving forward personally, but I wanted to share that we are doing a lot, and this is a model the city does currently recognize and utilize.
Commissioner Hunter, I think if there is a corresponding and compatible resolution that you'd like to bring forward that says to this resolution, yes, and then that is definitely something I think that we can entertain, and I welcome you to work with the chair and staff on that.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think the piece that it's missing is something like not being mindful and intentional about not providing homes for homeless that have been taken, land has been taken from Black families. That would be huge, because that's a huge piece of intentionality that says yes, and it says we're mindful that this is our focus and we will do no harm, additional harm to what has been done or future harm. And I think those are the best types of resolution that really acknowledge the full circle.
Sage, do you still have your hand up? Or is that's old? Okay, thank you. Well, are we comfortable passing this and then coming back around and adding with a second resolution at our next meeting that puts a finer point on sort of the not just the funding, not just like the funding aspect of it, but the land use aspect of it? Commissioner Hunter, Commissioner Rodriguez. Oh, sorry.
I didn't mean to raise my hand. Sorry.
It's okay. They stay up after for a little while. Commissioner Rodriguez.
This is Guy Rodriguez. I just wanted to, if we're going to do this, I would hate to resubmit this over and over again and keep tweaking and submitting it back and voting on it. I would prefer that we have a document that as much as possible satisfies all of our members so that we can then forward it. It just takes a lot of staff time and I would rather just do it once.
I agree. And I am willing to tweak the language. The language right now is basically just about policy and the city choosing housing first over other policies. So it doesn't mention anything about actual, construction or land purchasing or anything like that. So I'm willing to tweak that and add that. I just don't know exactly how to add that to a discussion about policy. So I'm open to suggestions. Or
this is Dane Berger. I think that the land use policy is going to be up to council. I mean, we don't know what properties are available or even how this is going to be implemented. Like Robin said, this is just a policy statement. And we just need to support it. It's absolutely mandatory that we support it with all the homelessness that we're seeing, people getting kicked out of their apartments and stuff. We have to do something about this. And it's a very small thing for us to do, just to say this is a policy that we support.
Cool. Commissioner Johnson, let's see your hands up.
I agree with Dane. It's a huge additional policy item that we're talking about. I personally think that the draft is well written and it's general enough to include a variety of discussion. I'd like to make a motion that the draft as presented be approved.
I would second that.
All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Johnson, second from Brian. Any further discussion?
do I need to read it out loud? Didn't I need to do that?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Robin, you want to go ahead with that?
Sure. All right. Resolution to support Housing First and recommendation to direct resources to permanent supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. Whereas the city of Asheville has more than 500 people experiencing homelessness in the community on any given day of the year, and whereas people who experience homelessness are at exponentially greater risk of exposure to disease and violence and more likely to die earlier than people who are housed, and whereas people of color are disproportionately represented among the number of people who experience homelessness in Asheville, presenting a clear racial equity issue, and whereas people who experience homelessness present a complex constellation of challenges for businesses, residents, and visitors in downtown Asheville that require a comprehensive community response. Whereas Housing First has been demonstrated as an evidence-based best practice that is key component of ending homelessness. Whereas the Asheville Downtown Commission was created by City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown Asheville, and to provide City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. Whereas the City of Asheville is the North Carolina 501 Asheville Buncombe Continuum of Care lead agency charged with implementation of effective strategies to end homelessness in our community. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Asheville Downtown Commission that the Asheville Downtown Commission endorses Housing First as the most effective strategy to end homelessness in Asheville and Buncombe County, and recommends that the city's elected and appointed leadership consistently prioritize any available funding or other resources to expand support of permanent supportive housing initiatives targeted to serve people experiencing homelessness. And that's it.
Sorry. All right. Sorry. Without further discussion, I am going to call the roll. Commissioner Charon.
I support. Aye.
All right. Chair Fletcher, myself, votes aye. Commissioner Hunter.
I abstain.
Commissioner Hunter, as a point of procedure, commission members are not allowed to abstain unless there is a conflict of interest at which that we would then have to vote to allow that person to recuse themselves. So
Yeah.
without a vote of recusal, a vote of abstention is going to, how does that?
So I have to recuse
point of-
myself because I'm a Black person who deeply feels the empathy of the 70 some odd community members who have said this hurts them because their land was taken and it continues to be taken for reasons, and they don't have homes. So this is an incomplete, it's just written incomplete, and I can't deny that homelessness is an issue and we need to solve it. I'm very compassionate about that. And I can't deny living in a Black body, accounting for damage that's been done for Black people. So I can abstain. I'm the only Black human on this commission, and this actually impacts me.
All right. Noted. Commissioner Rains.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers.
Aye.
Commissioner Summers.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Turner.
I'm going to go with nay on this.
All right. Well, so the motion does pass. However, to people with concerns, I'd say there is a lot of room in here for yes and so I would both anticipate and expect a follow-up to allay those concerns and make sure that there is a finer point on this recommendation. So, Commissioner Rogers.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's an opportunity to layer in Commissioner Hunter's concerns about land use and redlining into the priorities and recommendations document that we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks.
That seems like an excellent jumping off point for that. Commissioner Hunter, do you agree?
I do, provided we actually do it, which we often do stay on schedule, then yes. That's a great recommendation, Councilwoman Rogers, or Commissioner Rogers.
You got a promotion, Megan.
There you go, automatically.
Okay. Yeah, this is, I mean, I don't think this is a disagreement here on outcomes. I think this is a disagreement on exactly what process we get used to get to those outcomes. And so I'm sensitive to that. Obviously I came on one side of it rather than another, but let's move all forward together in filling in what's missing here and making sure that we don't have, that both hands are working together on our outcomes.
And I will say this openly, I'm willing to collaborate and cooperate. I think this is a great resolution, and I just want to see it more so that it doesn't hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Incomplete resolutions still and policies damage Black people, and they have historically. I stand in the gap to make a difference.
Well, thank you to everyone, especially Commissioner Rains, for taking your time and working on this. Obviously this got started talking in November, and just in the past couple of weeks we had what happened under Lexington, and I continue to hear public input and things like that, and it seems that a lot of the solutions that are suggested by the community really involve seeing less homeless people, not actually putting people in homes. And it really vexes me when people ask their city government to, hide people who are suffering rather than help them. And I want to make a firm commitment that hiding suffering does not alleviate suffering, and that a housing first policy, can't well implemented, with working hand in hand with other concerns of especially the African American population, then we can have much better results than just sending a uniformed city employee with a badge and a gun to move people along, because that's what we've done for decades. It doesn't work. It hurts. Doesn't help. It's the same problem over and over and over again. We got to break the cycle. Housing First does that, in my opinion. I'm happy to recommend that. I don't want the public to see the Downtown Commission doing nothing in regard to homelessness. I don't think that's helpful either, because we've heard a lot of that since I've been here. So I want to say, okay, cool. We hear you that you're having these issues, but I'm not going to double down on the public's a public suggestion to hide suffering. Let's translate that into a policy and recommendations that work. Okay, that's that. So now I'm going to turn it over to our next item on the agenda, which is officer elections. And this will be Stephen Lee Johnson that is going to be heading this up, if I am correct. And he's going to explain the process.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. So today we're going to be voting on a new Downtown Commission chair and vice chair. As we all know, Andrew Fletcher graciously stepped in and has served as the interim chair since we lost Ms. Turner, who successfully is now on City Council. And I personally am very grateful that that has happened. So I think that we have 4 candidates, 2 candidates for chair and 2 candidates for vice chair. We're, I think, all here aware of what these 4 candidates have to offer. For those that may be watching on YouTube or watching this later down the day, we're actually, the city of Asheville is extremely fortunate that we have 4 candidates that are all, have demonstrated to be very passionate and active with their time with downtown Asheville and city of Asheville volunteer efforts, from time spent endless hours on Haywood Task Force to chairing the HRC to being involved with the Civic Center and the Business Improvement District. All 4 are very worthy candidates, and we're very fortunate for this upcoming leadership. So what I'd like to do is just start off by giving each of the candidates a moment to just basically mention any thoughts they have on what they have to offer and why they're serving as a candidate. The 2 candidates for chairman are Andrew Fletcher and Brian Moffitt. And so, Andrew, if we could start with you, just a moment, please.
Cool. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, you've all seen me work. I actually first came to the commission over 5 years ago, presenting and making a case for the Asheville Busters Collective. I saw there the usefulness of the Downtown Commission, and I also immediately saw a place for me on it. And after a couple years, so did City Council. And I'm very happy to serve here in whatever capacity. But my history of leadership, especially with the Haywood Task Force, I think I ask that to show you exactly what I'm capable of handling hard discussions when there is very difficult, when there are big feelings in the room, and that I intend to have a steady hand in handling those, while also being comfortable to vote my own opinion and being in the minority. And if you did choose me at chair, I probably would be in the minority more than chairs likely are. But that still, but I still commit to, keeping a steady hand on the ship, continuing many of Sage's great systems and work as chair, and committing to amplifying the voices of each and every one of you to the best of my ability. So I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. Commissioner Moffitt.
I'm going to vote for Andrew after that. Well done. No, you've done a fine job today. I have also had to navigate and have a steady hand on the wheel for difficult decisions with big emotions in the room as the chair of the Historic Resources Commission. This is quite a different kind of set of issues that the Downtown Commission deals with, but the kind of personalities and the kind of decisions that we make are somewhat similar. I would also I'd like to say that I will only be one vote if elected as chair, and that I believe the chair's job is to basically make sure that everyone's voice is heard, that everyone gets equal time, and that we apply equal weights and measures to the processes that and the issues that come before the commission, and that either way the vote goes, I very much enjoy working with you as a group, and I'm enjoying this process. And if you see fit, I will serve you to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Commissioner Moffitt. Are there any statements anybody here today would like to make about either candidate? Okay, if not, I think we'll kind of divide this up. We'll go ahead and have a vote on our new chairperson. Sage, I would like, if possible, if you wouldn't mind going first with your vote, and if you have anything you'd like to share.
I don't have anything really to share. I think both of y'all come from strong backgrounds in leadership. I was personally very thrilled that Brian had joined us as a commissioner. And I think with what's coming up with the possible design review changes, Brian is part of a design review committee. And I think that's a strength that we'll need to carry through this to this board and have some alignment. And my choice is for Brian Moffitt today.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Turner. And I'm going to keep, Dana, if you don't mind helping me check my numbers, I'm going to keep roll call here. And I'm going to do a roll call now with the remainder of the commissioners in alphabetical order. If you will state the last name of the candidate for chair of the commission as I call your name, please. Commissioner Behringer.
Moffitt.
Commissioner Charon.
Moffitt.
Moffitt. Commissioner Fletcher. Let's see. I guess you can vote for yourself, obviously. Yeah.
I'm going to vote for myself.
Wait. Commissioner Hunter.
Fletcher.
Commissioner Johnson, that's myself. Moffitt. Commissioner Raines.
Fletcher.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Moffitt.
Commissioner Rogers.
Fletcher.
Commissioner Summers.
Moffitt.
Okay. So we have 6 votes for Moffitt, 4 for Fletcher. So it appears that Brian Moffitt will be the new chairperson for the Downtown Commission. So we'll move on to the vice chair election. We have 2 candidates, Kimberly Hunter and Ruth Summers. Kimberly, could you give us a statement, please?
I wasn't prepared, but I just want to say I came to this commission after I suffered from H1N1, a mutated version of it, died, and then came back to life. And so many of the meetings that we were at in person, I had severe organ issues and pain, but I came because I was committed. And I still come because I'm committed. beyond just the call of the downtown, but the call of what it means to provide beautifully designed infrastructure that puts human design first. And so I'm not your typically qualified person. There's many more people here, especially Ms. Summers, who I adore and admire so much, who has probably a lot more qualifications than I do. But no one beats me in heart and the willingness to show up no matter what's going on in the world and let other perspectives be known. So if you would offer me your vote today, I will continue to bring the same tenacity and inclusiveness of your thoughts and opinions and rejection of some of them, let's be real, to the process. Thanks.
Thank you. You certainly sounded like you were prepared, by the way. So Commissioner Summers, please.
Yes, I'd like to just give a little bit of my background for those of you who are new and may not know me. I've been a resident of Asheville for 25 years. I've worked in the Central Business District since 2004. I've served on the Commission's Parking and Transportation Subcommittee, and some of my other involvement has included 4 years on the Page Haywood Visiting Committee. And I also just finished serving on the steering committee for TDA's Tourism Management and Investment Plan. My personal interests include historic preservation and the readaptive use of buildings, and also supporting small businesses, especially independent businesses, because I have owned a small business. I spent 33 years in the arts, so the arts are extremely important to me. And I've worked with the National Park Service Department of Interior, both under a cooperative agreement and the renovation of a federal surplus property building. And I continue to work with the Grove Arcade Public Market Foundation Board on a part-time basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez. You have a comment? Let's see, I believe you're on mute, Gio.
I'm sorry, quick question for our candidate Summers. I worked with you on the downtown, the Haywood Page project. I don't know if you remember me. I was chair of the. I was wondering, are you connected with the community garden at all? There on Haywood Page?
I am not connected with that garden.
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Okay. Any further comments from any of the other commissioners regarding our two candidates for vice chair? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. I'll go through the names alphabetically, and then if you'll give me the name of the vice chair candidate your vote is for. Commissioner Barriger.
Summers.
Commissioner Sharon.
Hunter.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Hunter.
Commissioner Hunter.
Hunter.
Commissioner Johnson, that's me, Ruth Summers. Commissioner Rains.
Summers.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Summers.
Commissioner Rogers.
Summers.
Commissioner Summers.
Summers.
And Councilwoman Turner.
Just a quick, this is hard, y'all. I adore you both. You'd both be great. I think with the balance as Brian as chair, I need a Kimmy Hunter as vice chair. And I say that, no, I don't mean anything negative about that. I think it's a great combination. Ruth, you have been a tremendous asset to this commission. And I think either one of you could fulfill this role. And I'm confident that both of you will continue to speak up. Hunter is my official. And I lost count, so I don't know where we're at.
Okay. Councilman Turner, I think everybody shares those sentiments. It's very well said. This is all about balance, folks, and I think that that's a great statement. I appreciate you ending up the voting with that statement. According to my counting here, that was 6 votes for Summers, 4 votes for Hunter. Is there any discussion? Ruth Summers is the new vice chair of the Downtown Commission. And I believe
Congratulations, Ruth.
excuse me? Congratulations, Ruth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll turn it back over to the interim chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and congratulations, incoming Chair Moffitt. I just got a text from Dana that I guess the staff recommendation is that the chair that starts the meeting ends the meeting. So we'll turn over the reins.
Seconded.
After this. I do have a question. Are we missing a commission member? Because I noticed the votes were tallied 10 rather than 11.
It was me. It's fine. I was going to vote for Summers.
So okay. That was just a accounting question. It's all good. All right. So moving along, we have a subcommittee reorganization, and we're going to ask Dana to handle this.
Okay. I forwarded it on an email, and now I'm forgetting if I forwarded it on to all of you, but we're constantly trying to improve the way that we're running our remote meetings, and we get updated guidance from the city clerk's office when they have it. And they are recommending, as you know, our committees haven't been formally publicly meeting aside from the design review committee. The clerk's office is now recommending that we transition those committees to working groups. And those working groups would not be considered formal public bodies. If they wished to take recommendations or business to the Downtown Commission, they could do that during the full Downtown Commission meetings. But they would have the ability to be meeting during this time and working on specific needs or issues. So, and we do have a parking and transportation subcommittee meeting penciled in for March. Wanted to see if you all would be supportive of transitioning that formal committee to a working group. And this is based on the recommendation of our clerk's office. And I'm happy to forward that language around if you all need more information first. Also, the local living economy working group, it is already called a working group, and the group has been informally meeting. But just want to be able, to give you all the opportunity to formally kind of acknowledge that or handle however you see is most appropriate. Does that make sense? So
I think so too. So is that an update, or do we need a motion to accept?
I think it would be helpful if you all could make a motion to transition the Parking and Transportation Committee to be an informal working group. I think that'll give the ability for that group to be meeting and working on some specific issues and be able to bring items to the full Downtown Commission. Similarly with local living economy, I think it'd be helpful if you all could vote and recognize those as working groups. I think that would be in line with what's being recommended.
So moved.
Oh, all right. I see. I got a couple questions. I see Ruth and Sage. Ruth, you want to go first?
You've got a motion though. You need a second before discussion.
Oh yeah. Can I get a second and we'll have a discussion?
I'll second.
Second, Ruth Summers.
Okay.
I just wanted to, sorry. Did we get the second?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Andrew, I just wanted to say if the Parking and Transportation Subcommittee is going to start meeting as a working group, I believe we're going to need some additional people to join us. Sage has been chair of this fabulous committee for a long time, so I don't know if we elect a new chair in the meeting or we wait, but we are going to need some additional people to participate in this committee.
So as a working group, you can select from both the commission and from the community to sort of create a dream team. So, Ruth, do you think that should are you looking for other commission members to join, or are you looking for other community members to join?
I think we need some more commission members. I know that Megan has been part of this group, but I think to have another commission member would be advisable.
Stephen?
I'd like to volunteer if there's not anyone else.
All right, and Sage, I see your hands up.
Just some procedural questions. Dana, do you know, is the intention to go back to committees, or the committee structure, this commission would vote on the roles of said committee? If you remember, we'd say, well, we need somebody in the CVB. Can you guys approve that we're going to add someone? And then the committee itself would pick its members. So I'm just curious if this reverts back after some point, or if the goal is to transition to these working, and what that does to the commission's review of roles, et cetera.
I think there's a little bit more flexibility with a working group than with a committee, and that you all could take action at any time to change things back. I'm not aware of a formal process to elect roles, or a required formal process to elect roles as a commission body for working groups. And I can double check with our city clerk's office on that. But I think those groups are set up to be a little bit more flexible and less formal. But again, my understanding is that you all could change that back to a more formal body at some point in the future if that feels appropriate.
Commissioner Moffitt, or Chair Moffitt, I should say.
Commissioners, just fine, or just Brian. So the UDO goes through the appointment of committees, and that's, I think, where Sage is talking about that. It's fixed by the commission at the time of appointment, but a working group is just something we decide to do, and we can act on it as a commission or not. So it's that flexibility, and it's basically in the meeting laws during the pandemic, as I understand it, that it's a working group gives us more flexibility. But I don't think we can always go back to committees or keep working groups and use them as we see fit.
Ruth, is your hand still up, or is that okay? It's a ghost hand. So yeah, I would say that there are some advantages and disadvantages of the working group model. I think one of the advantages is that you can get more people together and have more discussions. The disadvantage is that there's a public input deficit that goes away when it's not an official committee. So one of the things I'd plan to do with a chairship, which I would encourage the incoming chair to do, is to basically put all the committees on the table and see that they are staffed and have membership that's appropriate, and that they have mandates that are appropriate, and if any changes from the pandemic are important to be made, and if this may be a pivot point to retool the work of those committees in light of new challenges. So that was something I was planning on doing, and I would encourage as a commission member that we take a look at that. The deficit of public input, I would say, can be mitigated by making sure that any decisions and recommendations do come before the public meetings at the full commission, just to make sure that you get the benefit of the work, but you also have the benefit of the public view. So that's all I'm going to say, and I'm prepared to vote for this now, because we have a motion and a second if there's no more discussion. All right, I will call the roll. Commissioner Berger.
Aye.
All right, Commissioner Charon.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
And Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Commissioner Raines.
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez, and
Aye.
forgive me, I forget who first and second. So if I ask your name again, Commissioner Rogers,
Aye.
Commissioner Summers,
Aye.
and Councilwoman Turner.
Aye.
All right. So that passes. So we're on to updates and reports. And so we're going to ask Stephen Lee Johnson to give a report from the Design Review Committee.
Thank you. This is Stephen Lee. I'll make this brief. The project that came before the Design Review Committee for the third time this last meeting, which was on February 5th, was the 4 Points hotel project. If you haven't seen the video of the calls, when this comes before the full commission, I believe sometime between either April and June, it's going to be a good idea for y'all to look at this because this thing's a beast. It's huge. And that's why we've seen it 3 times. But folks, we're really fortunate that on the Design Review Committee, we've got 2 architects that are not only local, but Robin and Brian, their companies deal with mid-rise buildings like this, and they have really buildings that are in downtown Asheville, and they have a really good, thorough understanding of what these buildings need to try to accomplish, and their input to the local firm that is driving this project has been really, really valuable. The design team has been extremely open to comments that have been given by the Design Review Committee members, and you'll probably hear a lot more about this in detail when they present later this spring. It's mostly a residential building. It's very large, and it's going to be considered it's a conditional zoning project. We did get some public comment, just so y'all are aware, and those are available online, I'm sure, to read. The comments were about traffic on Woodfin and basically views and concerns from the adjacent residents there near Market Street, South Market Street, North Market Street, excuse me. So those were some of the concerns that were sent in, but that was the one project that we reviewed last month, or February 5th.
Yep. Gio?
Guillermo Rodriguez. Stephen Lee, I've listened in on the last 3 Design Review Commission meetings, committee meetings, and one thing I know it's going to be fleshed out, but I was really excited about seeing that first floor activation with a market. I think was it a fresh market?
Yeah,
in the proposal. I can't wait to see the formal proposal, but it's going to be an exciting project for us to review and comment on.
Yeah, thanks, Gio. Yeah.
Ruth?
Yeah, I actually think it's an earth fair, not a fresh market.
Yeah.
I can't afford either one, so.
It's definitely an earth fair. I know.
Yeah, I've watched these meetings too, and it's really exciting to see a residential project of this size in downtown. And it looks like leveraging the existing hotel property to make this happen is kind of my view about why this is possible. And so without adding hotel rooms. So I see this as a lot of wins, and I think that tapping the brakes on tourism has allowed this type of thing to happen. I bet that if we weren't having this conversation as a community about tapping the brakes on tourism, the money that makes that development go up would probably be filled with hotel rooms rather than residences. And so I see that there's a win for some of the larger political strategy that's going on about what we do with our land and land use policy, and this is an excellent example of it, especially the ground floor activation and the residences and I think there's a net loss of impermeable surface on the property. Is that true? Because so much of it's going to because they're doing some. Is there some green roofs and they're doing some parking decks? So
I'm not sure we know that for sure, but it sounds good.
There
it
is
seems
a
like a
green
good
roof.
idea. All right.
Yeah, there is a green roof though. Yeah.
Right. It at least for I'd say for the number of units that we're getting, if we're it's close to a wash on permeable surfaces. That's what for stormwater comparatively to a lot of other types of development. So I see a lot of pluses with this. I've watched those design meetings, and y'all are doing a great job. I love how nerdy you guys get and go deep right on stuff and think of questions that I wouldn't have come up with. So those design review meetings have been really fun to watch, and I've seen that project come along. Really excited to see that. Anything else from design review?
Just one really quick thought, Andrew, about what you were saying to stormwater. But basically, the entire site now is impervious, and they're having to bring their entire stormwater management system into compliance, in addition to having a green roof and a portion of it. So it's going to definitely be a plus benefit for stormwater.
I think this will be our second green roof in downtown. The AC Hotel has a green roof. Third? What's the third one? Fourth? What are the others?
The art museum, the garage apartments, and you just mentioned one I didn't know about.
The AC Hotel. Oh, no, not the AC Hotel. The Aloft Hotel. Sorry.
Oh, so that's the garage apartments. Okay.
Yeah. So 3.
I had one comment. Is it just as a heads up to y'all as y'all develop your next year of goals and stuff? One of the things I flagged in the moratorium process that didn't quite make it through was an update to the view corridors. There's a chapter or a section in the UDO that talks about these view corridors. There's a little map, and it shows kind of the crisscross of the great views in town. And there's some language around where not to build under them or certain heights. I think those need to be updated. You know, if you've driven into Asheville and you see the new hotel right at the tunnel, we lost that view. Now we're talking about another highway line. I don't have a problem with the hotels on the highways, but we may want to really look at what views we're sacrificing because we're not paying attention. So I would just keep that kind of in your mind as we start to see this use open back up and these big projects line our highways.
All right. Well, if there are no Ruth, is your hand up, or is that a ghost hand again? Okay.
Mr.
right,
Fletcher, I also have a hard
yes.
leave at 11:30. I'm sorry, but I just want to let you know I'm about to disappear. Thanks, y'all, for a great meeting.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Sage. So
Mr.
now we're going to
Fletcher,
turn over.
Same here. So if we have anything else to vote on, just to let you know, I need to leave. Thank you.
No, we do not have any other votes in the queue. Just a couple more updates and reports. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan Rogers for the Asheville Downtown Association report.
Okay, thanks. I just have a couple things to update you on. Just recently, we announced a year-long complimentary membership extension to those members who need that. Most of our businesses are small businesses, fewer than 9 employees, and nonprofits. And membership fee just isn't in the cards for them right now. We did a 6-month extension last year, and it was well appreciated. So we went ahead and added a year onto that, and hopefully by the time that extension runs out, people will be back in a position. But it's important to keep members engaged and have that foundation. So it was a pretty easy decision for our board to move forward with that. We do have a survey out right now. I can drop a link in the chat or send it out to you guys by email. We've had about 80 respondents to it so far, so that's a pretty good level for us. And the results of those will be, it's short. It's generally like, let's get some basic COVID impact data and then talk about what other issues are facing downtown businesses currently and into 2021. We'll present those results at our State of Downtown update, which is February 23rd. It will be virtual, of course. You'll get an update from me on our 2020 work, which is going to be different than it was for 2019 for sure. And as well as the mayor will give an update on downtown projects and initiatives from the city, and then Brownie Newman the same type of report on what the county is working on in and around downtown. So please, it is, I'll send the link around as well so you can register for that. And then lastly, we obviously events is a big part of what we would normally do. we're at this point tentatively planning for maybe some late summer or fall events. It's all just sort of something to shoot for because we need a date and a time to shoot for. But we are hopeful that we can bring those events back, both for the community and for all the businesses that are supported by those events. So hopefully we'll learn more in the next couple of months. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions for me.
All right. Thank you, Megan. And now, Francie Charon, is there an update from the local business leaders working group?
Yeah, just real quick, we launched the 828 Go Local Challenge for the month of February. And that is a campaign mostly run on social media, hashtag 828 Go Local Challenge. And it's, we're encouraging folks to support at least 8 of their favorite local businesses in the 28 days of February. We just wanted to get the awareness out there that our local businesses really, really could use our support more now so than ever. So many of us are, experiencing 25% or more decrease in revenue, decrease in employees, and it's just every little bit helps. So trying to go with some positive efforts out there and send some good vibes to our local businesses. So hope you guys can follow along and complete the challenge and, give some good vibes to our local businesses.
All right. Gio?
Gio Rodriguez. Francie, could you share that link or something so I didn't quite get the whole, where to link in for that.
Yeah, of course, Gio. I can share that via chat. Is that the appropriate way to do it here?
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if Francie, if you would do that, and also I think probably just an email out to the rest of us, I think would also be helpful. So we all have it in our inboxes too. All right. If any more questions for Francie, or should we move on to Dana and the downtown update? All right, Dana.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Dana Frankel. I'll be quick. We haven't met in a while, so I wanted to just go back and mention a couple things. The Haywood Streetscape project, I know now it kind of feels like old news, but we hadn't met since it was completed, and it was completed in early December. So I just wanted to highlight that. There's been some finishing touches work, like cleaning up facades where there's been a little concrete splatter and fixing some little cracks that we've noticed in the sidewalks. But mostly that work's complete. We're still waiting for the trash and recycling bins. Those have taken a very long time. And then just one additional component that's happening that we just found out yesterday, the contractor is going to be fixing, replacing the sidewalk in front of 68 Haywood Street. So that area wasn't included in the scope of work, but because their trucks have been driving over that sidewalk, they're going to be replacing that and improving ADA access there. So that's great news. And that will start next week. We continued our partnership on holiday decorations this past year and just wanted to highlight that so that it doesn't go totally forgotten. The ADA works with us to display the Star Flake, and the Arboretum works with us on other aspects of the display. We tried a different location this year, not on the fountain in Pack Square, but we moved it over to the little grassy space over by the Biltmore building. And so it's a little bit scaled back this year, but glad that we could pull off the display. AVL shares space, the outdoor expansion initiatives, that gives businesses the opportunities to expand outdoors. Those programs, and hopefully you've kept up with this to some extent, we had set end dates for that, knowing these programs were temporary. The end date has been extended to align with the local state of emergency declaration. So there's no end date that we know of at this time. So once that local declaration is lifted, businesses will have 30 days to return to previous conditions. We're looking at what aspects we can continue longer term, but we don't know that at this point. Wanted to note, Council has recently allocated additional funding to continue a homeless shelter in partnership with Homeward Bound. This is the shelter that began at the Harris Cherokee Center, and that's been at the Red Roof Inn for the past several months. Throughout this program, those who have been served, out of those who have been served, 25 have found permanent housing. So I thought that was a really nice update. Currently, 67 people are being housed in the Red Roof Inn. And you have access to the report, and I've provided some more information on that and all of these other items. The city recently launched a new Office of Data and Performance. This is part of the city's reimagining public safety or advancing racial equity in Asheville work. And part of the creation of this office has come from reallocation from the Asheville Police Department. It's going to be an interdepartmental, cross-departmental team. And I encourage you all also just to learn a bit more about that if you can. It's a recent announcement. The city's seeking input on a proposed affordable housing project on Ashland Avenue. And you may or may not be aware of this. It's just outside of the central business district, but I wanted to make sure you all were aware of that input opportunity. There's a survey live now. And council is going to be getting an update on February 23rd. City's remote meetings continue. I think you all are familiar by now. Just know that all of the meetings are streamed live. You can also go back and watch them later, and there are always opportunities for public comment. COVID resources, there's new updated information all the time, particularly about vaccines, and I just encourage you all to visit the county's resources on that. We do also continue to staff a call center. If anyone has questions about COVID-19, I put a number and email address in the report, and happy to answer any questions that you all have. Gio?
Hi, this is Gio Rodriguez. I just wanted to shout out for the Guastavino Urban Trail. It's finally back in place. And I know as long as I've been involved in commissions, we've been wanting that because it's been laying in some warehouse somewhere hidden away, and we finally got it up and it looks great. Thank you so much.
Or is it the Grove Arcade one? I mean, we got Guastavino
The
up.
Guastavino.
Okay, got
Yeah,
Guastavino.
Yeah, because you know, I knew that was the Grove Arcade one was changing and that would be put up, but you know, we kind of lost track of Guastavino, and suddenly it's back up and it's great, and I've never seen it before. I had never ever seen it before.
Thank you.
It looks great. It's a total redesign too, I believe. And yeah, I thought the team did a great job. It looks. I was at the unveiling or the dedication, and it's great. I love to see any improvements in that area. Obviously, that area is close to my heart, so love to see that. Any more questions for Dana? No. All right. Well, this leads us to public comment, but hearing that there is no general public comment that came in, we can have an informal discussion and talk about future agenda items. If there's anything anybody would like to introduce.
I have one thing I'd like to share. I'd like to give a shout out to Asheville Mardi Gras. Normally Mardi Gras would be Sunday, February 14th this year. Obviously we can't have a parade. So what we're doing instead is a drive-by house parade. So the houses are basically the floats, and you just drive around and check them out. So anyway, it's on our website, information for it. I'll send that out to everybody. But also I wanted to let you know that in addition to the house parade, we also raised $6,500 to donate to people who are in need. And they can also apply through the website or suggest somebody else, you know, through the website. And so those are going out right now. I think we have some funds left, and those are in the form of Ingles, typically $100 Ingles gift cards. So anyway, I'll just send that out to everybody. There was also a nice little letter to the editor in the Citizen Times today from my wife, Cynthia. So anyway, I'll send it out. You can check it out on the website.
Great. Thank you, Dane. Anyone else? All right. Well, with that, I'd like to congratulate our incoming chair and vice chair, Brian Moffitt and Kimberly Hunter. Kimberly had to go, unfortunately. But I'm sure you guys are going to do a great job, and I look forward to working with you. And so with that being said, we are ready for adjournment. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. This is Rodriguez.
All right, and a second.
Second, Robin.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? Seeing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much, and I will see you in April.
See y'all later.
I can never figure out how to get out of there. That is a Zoom or what?